Lead cost per sale is how much money did you spend on leads to get one more sale, right? So if you have a $6 lead and you're converting at 1%, it means you're buying 100 leads to make one sale. That's $600. That's a pretty good number, right? If you're making $12,000 in GCI, you can see it as you're making 20 times your money, which is awesome. Or you can see it as you're spending a 5% of your total GCI on the lead generation, which is good. I usually try to tell my clients, whatever you're spending on lead generation should be less than 10, certainly less than 20%, but at least less than 10, but hopefully less than 10% of what you're getting on each of the deals that you close, right?
Let's talk about capturing clients, leads, opportunities early in the funnel. I think it's something that we don't talk about often. And so you hear conversations happen like this. Oh, online leads, they suck. You know what? I tried online leads, but this is nothing ever happened. It's like, and I think it's because no one focuses strongly on the funnel at the very beginning. And I think that's where it all starts. Like, what are your systems, processes? What do you have in place?
Well, I think because we particularly at CINC have many clients that succeed at early funnel, right? I think you and I made a webinar some time ago looking at the different sources and what you should expect. And I think everyone that is in this game agrees that early funnel is probably the most profitable way of growing your business, but it's also a tough one, right? It's not for improvised people. You're gonna have to call a lot. You're gonna have to have systems, accountability, and all of that without rehashing the whole presentation that we did like a few months ago when we talked. So this was at a very, very high level when I was comparing you the different types of lead gen, right? I was compared like if you do, of course, you're sending your own referrals. You don't pay anything on those referrals. CPL is your cost per lead, right? You don't pay anything on your own referrals. You convert a lot of them, very high profitability, right? But if you're doing early funnel right? If you're doing, and it doesn't have to be with CINC, if you're doing with any kind of good Google, Facebook advertising, should be getting leads at $6, $7, $8 per lead. And this is difficult, if you're doing all your follow-up and your accountability right, you should be converting at 1%, right? And I always try to get my people thinking of cost per sale, lead cost per sale. Lead cost per sale is how much money did you spend on leads to get one more sale, right? So if you have a $6 lead and you're converting at 1%, it means you're buying 100 leads to make one sale. That's $600. That's a pretty good number, right? If you're making $12,000 in GCI, you can see it as you're making 20 times your money, which is awesome. Or you can see it as you're spending a 5% of your total GCI on the lead generation, which is good. I usually try to tell my clients, whatever you're spending on lead generation should be less than 10, certainly less than 20%, but at least less than 10, but hopefully less than 10% of what you're getting on each of the deals that you close, right?
Okay.
Now, of course, agents get naturally attracted to easier deals, right? Like a Zillow deal, and forget Zillow Flex for now. If you go to the old style Zillow, you buy leads at 400 or 300. I don't know. You know better than me, Tristan. How much is a Zillow lead these days if you're not in Zillow Flex?
You're at about we just went through this yesterday, so it's perfect timing. $500 a lead, on average.
And what would you say is your conversion on those?
From the national averages directly from Zillow, you're at 6%. Do some people go higher? Yeah. Do some people go lower? Yeah.
And
So
that's the
6%.
thing. Imagine that you're at 10%, right? Imagine that you're at 10%. 10% on a $500 lead means you're going to buy 10 of those to close one. And I'm being optimistic with a 10%. It means you're paying $5,000 per deal. $5,000 on a deal that then you're going to make 10, 12,000. You're spending almost half, right? And that's what makes it now. Again, if you're an agent on the receiving end on this, you of course prefer a lead that you're going to have to call 10 people to get one sale than a lead that you're going to have to call 100 people to make a sale. But as a team leader that are trying to find profitable growth, it's just, if you are paying 50% of your GCI on the lead generation itself, there's no way that that's going to work. Can it always be as low as 5%? No. Okay. but 10%, 15%, but you cannot be paying $5,000 for each deal that you're going to close when you're only making $10,000 or $12,000 a deal, right? Now,
true.
In Zillow Flex, you're not paying anything up front, but you're paying at the end, right? And you're paying a 40%, right? But which is huge. 40% is a huge thing, except many team leaders split that payment with the agent and go like, well, I'm only paying 20% because the other half, it's going to the agent, right? Which is initially a good thing, but then the bad thing is you have agents that are making 30% on the deal, and then those agents stay with you for a year and then just go directly to an Home Light, Agent Advice, any of those to try to get their full 60% on a deal, right? It's more difficult to do on the early funnel, because in the early funnel, if an agent wants to leave you, they have to go buy a software like CINC, they have to invest up front, they have to get an ISA to call, all things that are difficult for them. But on a Zillow Flex deal, it's just a matter of them deciding, oh, you know what? If someone that is not my team leader is actually paying for these leads and follow up with them, I can go directly to the source. I don't need to. And I think that's the ultimate goal of Zillow Flex, which is I have a ton of very well-trained, successful agents that work directly with Zillow Flex. And that's why, for me, the role of the team leader gets diluted there, right?
Yeah, I agree with you there, man. Plus, I think what we see when it comes to portals, specifically like Realtor.com, Zillow, in essence, somewhat Redfin and even Homes now, is when they capture the lead, they want to make sure that they're assigning it to an agent. With the new laws coming into play, where they're going to have something signed to be able to work with them. I think this is why you saw Zillow come up with something, like a month ago, saying, hey, here's a contract. Let's
A
lock them in.
non-contract. Yeah.
A contract that's really not a contract. Let's lock them in, because they understand what happens to leads coming in now. It's like, hey, I can no longer sell as many leads as I was selling before, because it's going to end at some point because they signed a contract. I can no longer sell that lead down the line.
And that's precisely it, right? And so that, for me, there's two things that people think might be shifting, and one of them, in my opinion, is, and the other is not. So this shift is, in this new world, do late funnel leads become more valuable or early funnel leads become more valuable, right? So before, you could wait till someone was a month away from buying a home and get it through Zillow for $500, or you could get it 6 months before for $6, but then you had to do all the follow-up, right? And you might lose it at the end to Zillow and the last month, right? For me, what this, and Zillow realized this, and that's why they reacted so damaging to the industry. They realized that this new change, with all the bad things that came, there was a good thing that came, right? NAR said you're going to have a buyer agreement, which gives the agents a good argument to speak with their consumer and say, hey, look, we do need to have something. If I'm going to be working with you, we need to put something in paper. I think Zillow realized that what that did is a lot of those $500 leads, when you get them, are going to go like, oh, but I already have a buyer contract that I signed 3 months ago with whoever has been helping me, right? And so that was going to damage Zillow significantly. Therefore, they came up with what I believe is a blatant aggression to the industry, which is a non-contract contract specifically designed to tell the consumer, hey, the agents are telling you that you actually need to sign something. You don't. Just get this so that we can skirt the rules around them, and that's it, and don't sign me. Not anything real. How did you see the Zillow contract? Yes. Sorry.
I did. I saw the exact same thing. I made a video about it, and I was like, what is this? Like, oh, wait, this means we're going back to how we were. It's like, well, that makes no sense, right?
Do you
It keeps
understand
us
why
as
NAR?
door openers, right? That's it. We're door openers.
Why do you think NAR has not come out more vocally against it, right? Because they put in their specific settlement, they said, hey, look, now the only change in this sense is you do have to have a buyer contract to really see a house, which means you need to define your conversation with the consumer ahead of the work, because that was what generated the problem. And now Zillow is saying, no, I'm going to invent a touring contract that actually does the opposite of what NAR is saying. Why do you think that they didn't come up more vocally against it?
Well, two reasons. One, they rely on the states to develop their own contracts because they all have different laws, right?
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two, they're waiting to see what the Department of Justice weighs in on and says, hey, by the way, we want it to be more like this, right? And they haven't been super clear about what they want. And
They never are.
they never are, man. But the date for the MLS is to decide whether or not they're going to be part of the settlement or not is June 18th. So you saw just a couple of days ago, the Northwestern MLS, which is not part of NAR.
Mhm.
They said, hey, we're actually not going to abide by this portion of the law that you're saying we should, which is showing what the payment is to the buyer's agent. We're actually going to continue to do that. And I was like, whoa, and that's 33,000 agents, man.
Well, one point, not to correct you there, but it's not really a law, right?
Yeah,
It's a rule from NAR, right?
rule from NAR. You
So
got it.
and we at CINC we're thinking about this because the whole thing that generated all this problem is the accusation that agents were colluding with each other and looking at who was gonna share or not, and steering clients, which is ridiculous. Clients will go to whatever house they want to see, and they will not care if the agent steers one way or another. But there's a big difference between not having a secret channel for agents to talk about each other about commission
Mhm.
versus if I'm a seller, me covering the buyer commission is a seller concession, like any other seller concession. If I'm gonna provide $10,000 in seller closing cost, in buyer closing cost as a concession, of course I want to
Mhm.
put it on my listing, right? Why would I
Mhm.
not? It's part of what I'm offering. And also for me, in this particular case, this is the seller concession by excellence, because the only reason, independently of who's paying for the buyer commission or not, the only reason that it is makes more sense for it to be on the seller side is because that way it is in the mortgage, right?
Mhm.
And in the end, no one, not the DOJ, not the US government, no one wants buyers to have to pay buyer commissions out of pocket, because the first thing that would kill is first-time home buyers and VAs ever being able to get any house. They would be reduced to a very small amount of house that they could afford, because they would not be able to afford a $10,000 commission to an agent, right?
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, you make a good point there. And I put up the response from the NWMLS too in the link. So if anybody
And
wants to read that.
that
Uh,
shows you, like, this is a big MLS that is saying, you know what? We have to show it because consumers need to be able to see it. And so we, for starters, at CINC, what we are going to do is we are implementing a place for you to put in your listings how much your seller is agreeing to give, which is obviously totally kosher. It's even NAR said you can still do that. In fact, one important thing for anyone, sorry to jump around, but for anyone that is worried that the DOJ will say, no, you cannot really share commissions. I think this is a very important, let me see if I find it. One second. The
yeah,
DOJ
no
in
problem.
February actually came out specifically saying the opposite. Now they still want more transparency, but this actually would be less transparency if you're not able. So if you look at this, I'm not going to read it whole out loud, but the final phrase there: while some buyers might choose to pay their buyer brokers out of pocket, other buyers might request in an offer that the seller pay a specified amount to the buyer broker from the proceeds of the home sale. So what this
Mhm.
says is, even if the seller hasn't agreed a priori with his seller agent to give percentage to the buyer agent, it could still happen that at the end of the whole process, the buyer goes, you know what? Just add another $5,000 to my sell price, and you cover the agent. And
Yeah,
so the game doesn't change at all if that happens, right?
that's very true. That's
And
very
this
true.
is okay.
And I think all of this is really clearly showing us one thing though. And you and I were talking about it earlier on. It's saying the early funnel becomes even more important to us being able to close online leads. at a higher rate because hey, Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, they're all trying to pivot because they understand that this on the buyer side is a detriment to them, right? They're trying to pivot in two ways. One, we were trying to see that not contract from Zillow. The other one is they're trying to pivot into more seller leads, right? So we're seeing both. I'm like, interesting. And they're in the middle of figuring it out because they don't know. They don't know. They're like,
And
they're fumbling.
and that's where, if you want my contrarian point of view, that's where I don't agree with anyone in the industry. So on the early funnel versus late funnel, I think everyone agrees that early funnel is going to become more important, and that Zillow is scrambling to try to react. And as someone that has both early and late funnel, because I have Agent Pronto, which is late funnel leads, just like Zillow Flex, I
Referrals,
keep
yeah.
telling my clients, look, Agent Pronto or ProLink, you can still use it, but you need to realize that as more buyer contracts get signed 3 months ahead, many of those expensive leads at the end will come with people that are already somehow constrained, right? But where I don't agree with most of the industry is you will hear a lot Zillow, but a lot of my competitors like Boomton, like all of those, talking about moving to seller leads, right? And I absolutely think that that's the bad direction to go. I think that's like buying expensive stock when it's up and selling when it's down, right? For me right now, you have a lot of money going to seller leads, right?
Mhm.
You have to think that, and you probably know this from experience, Tristan, like the numbers show that only like 40% of people choose their listing agent from someone they met online, but almost 80% of people choose their buyer agent because of someone they met online. It's much easier for you to connect to an agent online when you're thinking of buying than when you're thinking of selling your home, right?
Yeah, very true.
And if that's true, then why is so much more money fighting for those seller leads? And again, we do seller leads. I have a ton of clients that come to me and go, Alvaro, I want to move from buyer to seller leads. And it would be very easy for me, frosting, to say, like, we have this new seller product that has this different or whatever, to try to ride the wave, right? And I'm taking the unpopular position of telling my clients, buyer leads right now, cost per lead is going down because more people are moving out of it for fear of the buyer commission not existing in the future. But the buyer commission is not going anywhere for the reasons we were discussing.
Yeah.
You need to be bringing in these leads and working them. And yes, you need to get them in a buyer contract. So we are trying to release, we're going to release now an easy contract button so that the equivalent of the Zillow one, but with a real contract where you agree with a price and a time frame, so that you can do it through CINC. But that's for me. So when you hear so much, hey, we're moving over to seller leads, in my opinion, that's just fear. And it's fear or just pandering, right? Like tech companies trying to ride a wave and going like, oh, I have this. I see more money moving towards seller leads, while buyer leads is the same pool of money gonna be amongst fewer people.
Listen, I doubled down on buyer leads while everybody's jumping off. I'm like, guys, are you not seeing what's happening? 30% of all buyers are sellers. We just have to ask the right questions,
Yeah,
right?
but I fully agree with you. And
No,
Dave just
I
asked a
agree.
question.
Uh,
Dave,
Go ahead.
he's will the percentage of buyers finding their agent online change with buyers needing to sign a contract? Will buyers do more research? And so here's my respective answer, Dave. And again, it's for what it's worth, it's just my opinion. It's no, the same amount of people will end up choosing still from online because that's the way that people are doing the research today. What it will mean is that people will research you more before they're actually wanting to engage with an agent, right? So having reviews, having a good Google business page that shows who you are, and having a good online presence that shows your expertise will become more important. Where before someone could say, I don't know who you are, but you know what? You can show me a house or two. It doesn't matter because in the end, I'm not committing to anything. If that goes away, now I'm still searching for my agent online, but I'm doing what you do when you want to buy a TV. You're going to read reviews, you're going to try to find some articles on it, and you're going to make some research before you do it, right?
That's a good point, man. And I think what you were also leading into is it becomes even more important, Dave. It becomes more important that you actually have some type of a portal that competes with Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, because as soon as you have them sign a contract with you, they've got to be able to search, and it has to compete with those other companies out there, or they're going to feel like this is, Tristan's just, he's not up to it. And then they can easily cancel too. So the tech now has to match, at least match some of the competitors, because they are finding us online. So great. What a great question, Dave. I love that. Yeah, Carrie says, I've been saying the same thing about buyers. It's going to be a hotbed of opportunity. 100%, Carrie. Great point. Kristen, what's up, Kristen? Are you saying that CINC is coming out with a contract for buyers to sign? Alvaro,
So
good
what we're
on.
doing is this, actually. So I don't know if you probably know it, Tristan, but our sister company is SkySlope, which is a transaction management company, and they've done the whole work of having the buyer contract for each state according to the state laws and all of that, which would take us years to do. So what we're doing is we've made an agreement with them where we're going to put a widget in CINC where you can easily use without having to pay SkySlope, without having to be a user of SkySlope. You're going to be able to use directly from CINC. You're going to be able to send your buyer contract specific to your state to your consumers on a one-click from our site without having to pay them and using their contract forms. We're super grateful to SkySlope for that. Hopefully they'll entice you later to use them for other stuff, and that's a great upside for them. But at the very least, we'll have that right away.
I like that. I like
Yeah,
that, dude.
we'll
Yeah,
have that before it drops in August, before the everything drops.
good. August 17th. So that's good.
We'll have it before.
I have an anonymous question about Google page. I'll see if I have a link for you, so at least you can contact them. They can help you out there. Alvaro, I have a question about Agent Pronto, because I did put up the link for where people can sign up. Can you quickly go through what that is so people understand?
So Agent Pronto is our referral network, and what it does is at CINC, if you have your website, we're managing your ad spend and we're creating SEM, people looking for homes that then give you their information, and those are the leads. Agent Pronto basically serves people that are looking for agents. Either those are internal referrals between CINC agents that are looking for another agent in some other place to refer to, or it's people that are coming to our landing pages specifically looking for an agent. So of course, they are much more down the funnel leads. We're talking about, again, a conversion that's more like a 12 or 15%. And we're doing the follow-up at Agent Pronto, and then it gets placed on the agent, and then you pay a 35% referral fee. So in many senses, it's like a Zillow Flex. I love to have it, and I always say it's a great complement for your lead gen. But I don't want my clients growing their business on it, because you should be growing your business on transactions that leave you an 80% margin, not a 51.
That's true. Good point on that. Very good point. Uh, I had another question that I wanted to
Yeah.
answer. I wanted you to answer. Where was it? There it is. Kristen, will there be a new button for the lead to check regarding whether they've signed an agreement with another agent or not?
Huh. We hadn't thought of doing that. That's an interesting point. Something I'm gonna write down. We had
Eh?
not thought of adding that to the registration model. It still remains to be seen, in my opinion, how much really this gets applied, right? Like, it's now 80% of buyers are gonna happen with a buyer contract or not. So we would still want to give you the lead, even if they're working with someone, but it is valuable information that we should ask. The problem is people lie, right? And so they might click the box just to tell you so that you don't contact them early. And so, but it's something worth analyzing.
All right. Let me answer that one. Good one. These are good questions, man. I like this. This is a
Yeah.
good interaction. All right. So in regards to early funnel leads, what are some things that you've seen that allows us to capture them better and have a better relationship longer term with them so they end up using us?
Yeah, so on that, the main thing is where I am a pretty boring CEO, as you've seen a lot, and you know them all of my competitors, Tristan, that are always building some like new thing that will completely revolutionize. I think what we've been doing for the last 8 years continues to get better and better. I think if you have what you need first is you need a professional doing your early funnel lead generation. And again, it doesn't have to be sync, but what I mean is you might think that just doing Facebook advertising on your own or doing Google advertising on your own, it might save you that 10 or 15% management fee, but you're going to be paying double cost per lead, right? Because it is a very complex thing that to be done right, like you need a professional who has a team doing that. So my first point is with whoever you want, just have a professional running your early funnel campaigns, right? And then I do think that I recommend having a combination of follow-up measures. I think there's always the discussion on whether you use an ISA or whether you have your agents calling or whether you use AI. I believe in the combination of them. I think that I've seen a lot of clients fail by just wanting to trust an ISA completely. Like they hire and look, all great companies, Verse, Rockerbox, Conversion, whichever you want to talk about. Any client that wants to go full on them then gets disillusioned and leaves them. Because the truth is, if you don't have your agents calling, there's no amount of ISA or AI that's going to save you. You need your agents to
True.
be in the front lines and having those calls, even if someone is supporting them, right? So I'd still recommend the ISA, the ISA services, but with that. And then, of course, I don't think you can not have AI these days. You cannot have, and we could talk voice AI briefly, but you cannot have not have text AI, which I think is the most effective way of using LLM models, because just people want immediate reaction and follow up, and unless you are going to have people dedicated to it 24/7, it's such a cost-effective way of doing your follow-up.
What do you consider to be early funnel leads? Where do they come from and how do we get them?
So for me, early funnel lead, we call for early funnel lead is someone that is looking for a home and not for an agent, right? Now, the difference is when you have a system like CINC that does forced registration, and to explain what that is when someone is looking for a home in a site like CINC, we do ask them. In fact, CINC, I don't know if you know this, Tristan, we have a new product now that we released which is real verified leads, where we are actually to give full access to your site. Not only are we asking people to register, but we're asking people to do two-factor authentication that actually confirms that is their phone, which is something no one else is doing it.
That's
And
awesome. I
it
didn't know
is.
that.
Well, what's awesome is not because the idea, we had it a long time ago. What percentage of people do you think, Tristan, are actually doing the bank two-factor authentication to tell us that this is their phone only to use our sites?
Dude, I don't know. What's
Yeah,
the
throw a
answer to
number.
that? 20%.
66%.
No way.
66%.
That's
And
crazy.
a 13% of people are actually changing their phone number after the fact when they see that they cannot access the full site until they do it and put in the right number. That's
That
the biggest thing. It's much less flashy than a lot of the stuff that it's out there in the world today, but it's the most effective thing we've done in lead generation in the last 8 years that I've been here. But outside of whether you're doing this with CINC and you have real verified or not, back to your question, Tristan. Oh, sorry, Tristan, you were going to ask me something.
No, you go through the funnel. So they come in through Google. Let's just say they come in through Google, right?
Yes,
You know what? Let's run this live. I don't know what the hell is going to happen, okay? But you're going to
that's okay.
have fun with it right now. Give me a city, Alvaro.
Yeah, you go looking for homes in Atlanta, right?
Homes for sale in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
All right, so we're looking early funnel, right?
But that's the thing. So here, right? This it doesn't mean it's a sync client, but you can see the difference, right? If you go to homes there, homes.com, um, homes.com is going to give you a site where they're not going to ask you to register, and you're going to be able to use it fully And that's great. As a consumer, you love it. You don't have to commit to an agent. You're going to keep using that site and navigating through it till a month before when you really want to talk to an agent, because now you know what you want to buy, right? And that's,
Mm-hmm.
I understand why consumers like that. But if you go to that one, fisherhomes.com, I assume, if that's not us, but if it's a site like
Let's
that,
take a
you're
look.
going to go to, if you were to go to one of our sites there, when you start looking for a home, let's say that you press on one of those homes, any,
All
just
right,
press
let's
on
take
it.
a look at.
Yeah, just choose one of those that there. Yeah, it should be. Go there, just view details.
I'll accept
And,
it.
yeah.
So it's not prompting me. Oh, well, let's take a look at this one.
So this one, maybe not, right? With us, what would happen is you would not be able to navigate as you're navigating now. It would stop you and it would say, hey, we love you. We want to show you all of this, but you're going to have to give us your information in order to use our site, right? And in fact, in our new product, Real Verified, we're going one step farther and saying, if you really want to use all of our site, you actually need to prove to us that this is your phone, right?
I love
And
that, man.
so that is the definition of early funnel, because you are in some ways forcing the consumer to give you their information before they're ready, right? And that I can understand. Some agents go like, well, I'd rather talk with them when they're ready to talk to me, right? But that's not the way the world works, because a good salesman is going to get in front of them before they're ready, and you're going to say, hey, look, I can help you and I can help you early. And if you're not a transactional person that expects something to come back to you like next month, if you're someone that is willing to invest 5 months into a relationship, you're going to get that client much better than the person that is wanting to wait till 2 weeks before they buy, right? So our system does require people that are willing to invest, look long term, and willing to build relationships, and are not looking for just a transaction. If you're looking at leads as a transaction, if you're looking at people as a transaction, you're never going to succeed in early funnel. You have no option but to wait.
And just to make a quick point, all of our as agents, our competitors are on early funnel as well. And that's how they grew in the industry, homes.com. In fact, that's exactly how homes.com grew. That's exactly how Redfin grew. Let's pick up another area. In where? Give me another city.
Yeah, but I don't know. Dallas.
Houston. Oh,
Yeah,
look at that.
Dallas.
We were kind of close. All right.
Yeah.
We're not too far from each other, Alvaro. So then we've
Richard,
got
give us
other.
Richard, give us a client. We have Richard in our give us a client site in Dallas.
Yeah, give us a client side, Richard. And then
Yeah.
look, you've got more of our competitors, Troll Brothers, Homes Again. You can go
That's the
all
thing.
throughout.
They're always going to show up, right? And that's sponsored. If you go down to organic, Zillow is always going to show up first. And so the only way that you have of great Houston area homes. Let's see, John here, but great Houston area at homes.com.
Area, Great Houston area homes.
Yes. Which we do
Perfect.
that in purpose because we want,
Hold on.
oh, no.
Let me get the chat. Let me go to the chat and grab it.
Copy paste it. But the reason that we use generic URLs is because we know that it's a greater Houston area homes.
Well, I got Jamie's. So there you go.
Okay.
Or greater. Let's go to this one too. So you guys can take a look.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Both are
Perfect.
beautiful.
So beautiful site. Go try to start navigating it. Yeah, press on one of the homes. Ah,
Got it.
that's the thing, right?
So what happens after I click on enter my phone? Does it
Yeah.
take me
So
to a
when you
second page or does it give me the ability to log in without that second funnel piece?
if you don't have a real verified, because not all our clients have it activated, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have it. Once you put your information, it'll ask you a couple of questions, but you can X out of them if you want. You can use the site. Once you gave an email and a phone number, you can use the site freely. If you
Got
have
it.
real verified, there's going to be one more step where it says you can already start using the site, but if you want to fully use everything that the site has for you, then you have to send a two-factor that that's your phone, right? But again, to be able to do that, you need a site that really creates trust, right? If you're having a crappy site that is just a place where you're just driving traffic, you might get some accidental leads, but those leads are never going to come back to the site. The reason that we invest so much on as you said, our competitor is Zillow. Our competitor is not like whoever the other guy that is building sites is, right? We compete with Zillow for the attention of the consumer. And because Zillow is giving it without any registration requirements, that's a hard competition. And we can only win in that competition by having top level sites that provide trust, that make people want to use them, right? And with that, you get those early funnel leads. Now, I'd still say, and this is, I've looked at over 10 million leads at CINC, even with early funnel leads, 40% of all transactions will happen within 6 months of you getting the lead. So a lot of people think all transactions happen at the year. 40% of transactions from every pool of leads that you get from a good Google or Facebook campaign will happen within the first 6 months.
I like that, man. That's a good stat. I learned that stat from you, by the way. And something else you mentioned earlier that we kind of just glanced over or just passed through it that was important, everyone. As you're paying attention to early funnel leads, Alvaro said, I wrote it down, Alvaro. Early funnel is more of the client looking for a home. Later in the funnel, the client, the consumer, is looking for an agent. So if we turn that around and apply it to how we as agents reach out to the client's early funnel, and we're trying to say things like, are you pre-approved? When do you want to see this home, right? Are you working with an agent? All of those things are at the wrong timeline. You should be saying, tell me more about what you're looking for. Are you open to this area or how about this area? Tell me more about the home, right? Which is so key. That's why I focused in on that. I was like, you're so right. The consumer's looking for a home. They could care less who the agent is, so focus on that.
They'll care about it when they're ready to buy, right? In the meantime, you need to just make sure that you're giving them the inventory, that you're there for them, and that you're creating that relationship, which is one of my reservations with AI, right? I love AI, but you need to jump in and start creating relationships as early as possible. If you think that a robot is going to create those relationships for you, you're in the wrong business. One quick comment. I think Jamie was worried about when you go to their site, they are paying for that traffic. That only happens, Jamie, if they're clicking on your ad, right? So if someone goes to your site because they're writing your URL and then go and register or not, none of that costs money to you. What costs money is anytime that someone sees your ad in Google and clicks on it, yes, then you're paying for that click.
Yeah,
but
a good point. So I just went over here to Google, typed in homes for sale in Houston. If I were to click on Beezer or any one of these, say sponsored, then they would get charged.
You can click on Zillow if you wanna hit them with.
You know what? Why not?
It's,
Nothing,
sorry, that was unnecessary,
nothing wrong with that.
yes, but that, Tristan, that's where I think where I do think that early funnel is going to become more important than late funnel. Establishing long-term, the agents that are going to win at this game are agents that are willing to establish a long-term relationship with a client early in the process. Whether that's early funnel leads or whether you're doing that through football games, I don't know. But if you're waiting to the last month to try to engage with a client, it's going to be too late. I do think that reputation management is going to become more important. So whatever we at CINC, we're about to release very, very soon a huge like agent reviews pages for you as part of CINC. But independently of whether you're doing it with CINC, with what we're doing, or somewhere else, at the very least, you should have, if you walk with nothing else away from this webinar, if you don't have your Google business account to date with good reviews, in this new world, you're going to struggle as a buyer agent because they're going to be researching you. And if they don't have a place to really see how good you are and hear from other people, you're not going to be able to get to that buyer contract, which I absolutely think you need to get to that buyer contract.
Yeah.
But with that, just to round it off, I do think still, if it was my money and I as a CEO at CINC, I am betting strong on buyer leads. I think all of the fear mongering of moving people to seller leads, the only thing it's going to do, seller lead cost is going to go up and conversion is going to go down because you're going to have more people fighting for the same amount of leads. Buyer leads are going to go down in cost and high in conversion. So we at CINC are investing heavily on it. Real Verified is our new answer to it. But whoever you're doing it with, I recommend early funnel buyer. That's my bet today these days.
Check this out. Early funnel text yesterday. I know it says today on the picture that I'm about to show you, but it was yesterday. And is a Google PPC lead, right? So similar to what we went through right now, going on Google. And I removed their phone number on the top, but you could see here,
That's okay.
going along with what you're saying, they're looking for a home, not necessarily the agent, early funnel, right? So I'm saying, hey, are you looking for Woodland Hills, or are you open to Calabasas or Agora? I said, prefer Woodland Hills, but open to Calabasas. Got it. Do you have a specific price range so I don't go over that? And then she says, well, we got 20% down. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I got it. Checking now for you. Stay tuned. Thanks. Thank you. And we need at least 2 baths. I go, definitely need 2. Good thinking. And then I went through it, and then I said, hey, I just got one of my agents or business partners, Mark. I shifted it over to Mark, and now they're working with Mark. They spoke yesterday. They are pre-qualified. They have no agents. And
Nice.
I'm like, this is amazing. Google, all right? And just early funnel, man. Every once in a while, the early funnels will wrap up in like 10 days.
I know. I've been surprised by that. And one thing I think John there was saying, which is also true, we have our Home Pulse product, which what it does is it entices home buyers to tell you if they really have a home to sell to. 50% of them do, right? And so again, we're going to be in a world where it's going to be cheaper. I think it already is. It's cheaper to get a seller through a buyer lead than going directly for the seller lead. Said by someone that has both products. I have a seller lead product and a buyer lead product, but the buyer leads, if you count how many of those end up being a seller too, you almost are better off.
I love the topic, by the way. I think this becomes even more important. I'm always, ever since I've known you, Alvaro, we've been running Google PPC, and I absolutely love the early funnel. I've become just obsessed with that, and I love it.
Because you're not scared of the hard work, right? And because you're a relationship guy that is willing to invest in someone for 5 months before selling them a home. And I think if I leave some, I didn't realize I had so many CINC already here. My main to all my CINC buddies here is I really recommend for you to turn on Real Verified Leads if you haven't yet. I think it's the best thing we've released in a ton of time. I would continue to bet on the buyer side of things. If you call me and you tell me you absolutely want to change to seller, I will, but I will caution you against it first. And I do think that we're walking into one of the best periods of online lead generation in history when this market bounces back, because after a significant time of decreasing lead gen costs, it's ripe for the taking. But I do same, if you saw me in 2020, you've heard me say the same thing when pandemic was raging, which is in the times where you have the downs, where people are delaying buying and where people are dragging their feet and not and waiting to do the transaction that they know they have to make, that's the times that you need to be making relationships. If you're not making phone calls now and getting people in relationships with you, you're gonna miss one of the biggest upsides in the market that we've ever seen.
Very true, man. Well said. Alvaro, thank you so much for your time. This was great. I always love doing these with you, man.
This is awesome, Tristan. It's always great. I love talking to you.
Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day. Thanks for joining us.